Navigating through the teenage years is already tricky, with so much going on in our bodies and now so much going on in the world around us. In this series, we're going to explore some of these important topics that can impact us right now in this time during our lives. I'm Kim, and this is Teenacious. Family. They can be such a blessing in our lives and such a challenge too, especially during our teenage years. Are you from a family that you're grateful for? Maybe your family struggles. Maybe you feel both about your family. I do about mine. Some days I think, can't live with them. Some days I think, I can't live without them. We're going to talk about the topic of family relationships in this episode and how we can make the most of them, especially during our teenage years.
Me and my family, we're like really close and we tend to have dinner every night together. And I guess it's kind of good to have an older sister who I can like talk to about anything, because she will talk to me about anything and I can tell her everything. So.
Yeah, that's good.
I think family really shapes who you are as a person. Like if your family's beliefs often are your beliefs as well. So that your family really plays a big part in your life.
Definitely.
Yeah.
When I think of my family, I realise that they've been really important in my life. I'd like to share a story about my mother. I was in grade 9 and I started to get bullied, and it really started to escalate, and then one day I actually got hit, and that scared me a lot. It made me feel rather unsafe. And I remember as I was going home just feeling very scared. When I got home, Mum knew straight away that something was wrong. She looked at me and she said, "What's wrong, Lockie?" And I looked at her and I said, "Nothing." And as soon as I said nothing, I started to cry. She came up to me, she gave me a big hug. She said, "I love you." She said, "Please tell me what's happened." And so I let her know what had happened. She said she loved me again. She hugged me again. She said, "It's okay, Lockie, it's gonna be okay." She called up the school. She made sure that that wasn't going to happen again. And I remember as I went back to school, I was still scared, I was still unsure. The environment didn't feel safe, but one place that was safe was home. Each afternoon as I came home, my mum would say, "How was your day? Is everything all right? Everything going well?" That home became a place that was safe, that was supportive. And the rest of the family got behind my mother as well. We have this line, which is, you choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. And one of my youth workers, when I was younger, he said to me, "Lockie, you can't choose your family because God did." When we know that God has a plan for our relationship with our family. And we know that what God has a plan for is good. God has a plan for our relationships, and we can trust that they are good.
You know, family relationships are the training ground for life. It's where we learn how to relate to people, how to love people, how to be good to people, how to argue with people. It really impacts us for the rest of our lives. Consider other people's feelings. You know, it's hard when we're going through our teenage years to remember that we're from a bigger family. We're from other people. There's mum, there's dad, there might be siblings around. Remember that there's a lot going on in family sometimes, and everyone has feelings, everyone has emotions, everyone has desires, and everyone's going through their own stuff. So just remember that sometimes, I know it sounds tough, but sometimes the world doesn't always revolve just around us. Don't forget to ask your mum and dad how you're going. They're people too, and I reckon they might be surprised if you say, "How are you? How was your day? Is there anything I can do?" Because I'm sure they're asking you how your day is as well.
For my family, we're very tight-knit because since I was younger, in year 1, we were all homeschooled together. So it was like this small classroom where we'd all help each other. And from being so close and growing up, being in that environment, we do actually fight quite a lot. Like, we always have little petty fights, especially me and Gabby. We're always at each other's necks, like 24/7. And now that, because me and Gabby are some of the youngest, everybody is off doing their own thing, either going to uni. One sister is in youth mission team in Perth. So everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and it's just us at home. So it can be like a bit tensiony, and then other times we'll be like best friends.
What I've actually really noticed about my family especially is when I was going through my younger teenage years, I was very moody, and at the time I didn't really want to admit it. I was kind of like, no, I'm not that way, but I really was. And now, coming out at the end of that stage, mum and dad have really noticed it in me, and my relationship with them is a lot stronger now because of it. And my younger brother, he's just starting to enter that stage, and I'm getting the perspective from the other side of him going through the same stage I was at, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really was like that. Yeah.
So for me, I guess my family background's pretty complicated in that so my parents separated when I was quite young. I was about 4 or 5 when my parents separated, so it was pretty rough growing up with one of my parents not there, and that was my dad. So my dad moved away, and so sometimes with people who are have divorced parents, their parents, both of them are very active in their life in some way or other. But for me, growing up, it was not exactly like that, because my dad moved halfway across the country to a complete other city and things like that. And I'd see him like at Christmas or Easter and things like that. And we'd spend the time and do things together and things like that. So it was pretty rough. And so I haven't a solid understanding of what that relationship is like. And my relationship with my mum sort of had to be the strong thing, because it was just myself and my mum. And we fought at different times, but we also loved each other and things like that, and still do, because mum's still around. But it's again another bit of a tough relationship, full of a lot of different hurts and things like that, because mum was pretty hurt by things that went on in her life, and I was also pretty hurt by things that went on in my life.
You are unique. God created every person unique, a little bit different from each other. That means everyone in your family, none of them are exactly like you. Which means you're going to get along with some of them, and some of them you might not. You might find yourself very different. You might find that you disagree with some of them in a lot of different things. I have 3 sisters, and 2 of them I can say, naturally I get along with pretty well. But one of them, we are pretty different. We see things differently, which means that we disagree on a lot of stuff, and we think differently. It's difficult sometimes, because we bickered. We bickered a lot when we were younger. Our families laugh about it sometimes, about how often we fought and how often we would just argue about little things.
I love listening to Lockie's story. I love hearing how life isn't always great, but it's having family there that matters. So knowing that his mum was there for him, even when he was going through hard times as a teenager, that he was brave enough to actually tell his mum what was going on. At first, he actually said he was fine. So many of us as teenagers, when our parents ask us how we're going, even though we're going through hard times, we can often say, I'm fine, and not let them in. I'm so appreciative to hear that Lockie's mum actually knew, you're not fine, and she actually probed a little more. I just want to encourage you, regardless of whether you have a really close relationship with your mum and dad or not, they want to be there for you. If you're going through hard times, please tell them, because I know as a parent myself, I would want to know if my child was going through a hard time. Work on controlling your emotions. When you're having moments with your parents and you start disagreeing, it's really hard for both you and your parents, to have that outburst, and then you end up fighting and everyone walks away or there's slammed doors. But work on controlling your emotions. Take some deep breaths, walk away if you're getting angry. Even say, you know what, I'm getting really angry and upset and I need to walk away for a sec before I keep having this conversation. Will go a long way in avoiding those explosive moments that we can have in our family.
My family can really, it can affect you emotionally, or like good and bad. Like sometimes your dad might be like, oh yeah, let's go bowling. And you're like, yeah, and then you might pick up your mate and then you just spontaneously go bowling and you have a great time. And you're like, yeah. And then other times you might be sitting in a room and it's like 12 a.m. and you're just trying to get to sleep, and then suddenly you just hear this talking, and you're like, wow, that's really loud. And then you're like, are they fighting? And then it doesn't stop, and then it happens night after night, and then you just go, wow, like this isn't very good. And then you realize you can't really do anything about it, and then when you try to do something about it, you get stuck up in it, and then your parents start getting emotional, and then they cry, and then you cry, and
That sounds intense.
that's how it goes. Like no one wants to talk about it, but it happens everywhere. But yeah, that's just, it gets emotional, good and bad, and sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's just frustrating.
So do you feel like people don't talk about the bad stuff about family? Is that what you mean? They often talk about the good stuff?
People always go, oh yeah, like people like, how are you getting home from this event? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm catching the bus, and I'm catching another bus, I'm catching another bus, and then I'll be home. And they think it's normal for their parents to almost like not care about them. And then they hear about other people, like my parents, they'll go, oh wow, your parents are great. And then I'm like, yeah, they're great all the time. But then obviously, like, my parents aren't perfect. It's just, yeah.
It's true.
But yeah, just people, they're almost casual about how their parents don't care about them. And like that shouldn't be a thing. Like that should be handled in some way or another. But yeah.
I think it's just knowing how to love and forgive, and still there is a need to reach out, even if it feels like it may feel like nothing will come from it, but you've just kind of got to find that place in yourself. And it might not happen when you're a teenager, it might not happen when you're young, and it might not happen for a few years until you're an adult and you're actually able to be in the right space for those sorts of things. And sometimes there's dangerous situations and things like that, and never put yourself in a dangerous situation. But if it's a place where you can seek healing or seek love and things like that, or whether you've got to, pray through it or talk through it with someone like a counselor or things like that, or see people. Like when I was younger and I was going through primary school and things like that, I look back and I realized that there was a lot of these little programs that I must have been put in. Not that I was aware of them, and they were like things like seeing a child counselor and things like that, and I imagine they must have helped in some way or other. Otherwise, we wouldn't do those sorts of things. But and it's about finding. You can also find family anew when you get older as well. Like I say that I found family in my new home where I live now. So I moved away from my small town where I used to live, and not that my old family isn't my family anymore, but it's still my family. But I have a new family as well. I have an extended family of people who I love and I care about.
I remember one time I was arguing with my dad. I didn't want to go to Mass, all right? And I remember saying, Dad, why do I have to go? You guys go, that's your choice, but why would I have to go? And he said, because it's what we do. Because it's what we do. Being part of a family means that sometimes you're going to do things just because it's with your family. Not because you want to do that particular thing, but because it's about being with your family.
Sometimes as teenagers, we can have what I like to call teenage tantrums. Find other people that you can talk to. Find people that you can share with what you're going on. So if your mum and dad are ever busy, you know you have that really good presence, that mentor, that role model, maybe an auntie or an uncle, a coach or a teacher that you can also share how you're feeling and share the struggles is a family that struggles as well. I'm sure your family has a mixture of those things, whether big or small. You know, family is one of the most greatest blessings we have. It can also be a big challenge as well. Hopefully during this session, you've heard about some tips on how to help you have the best experience possible when it comes to your teenage years with your family. Don't ever apologize for having a good relationship with your parents. Some of the wisest teenagers I know are teenagers who have fought for their relationship with their parents, who make sure they keep in communication with their parents. They're the ones that actually learn from their parents, have that good, wise mentor in their lives that can journey with them and offer advice. The people that have known you ever since you were born. It's a really good opportunity to keep improving your relationship with your parents. This brings us to the end of our series called Teenacious. I've so enjoyed being your host. It's been an amazing journey. I really hope that you guys have learned something in the number of topics that we've discussed that have been relevant to your life. We'd love to hear what you thought about this series. If it's helped you, jump online, go to Shalom World and tell us what you think. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'd love to hear your thoughts of your experiences over the last few weeks. This is me signing off. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I wish you all the best. Remember you are amazing. Remember you are special. Remember your self-worth. Don't conform just because everybody tells you. And you know what? You're going to make it through these teenage years. You're going to be okay. God bless.
A lot of talk in our church today about the new evangelisation, and we might ask, well, what's new about the new evangelisation? One thing that's new is that we're trying to renew the faith in people who should already be Catholic, should already be Christian. Individuals, families, communities, whole cultures that need to rediscover the gospel. And so what's new is that they're getting a new shot in the arm of faith, of evangelisation. Another thing that's new about it is the way that we do that. And the new media and groups like Shalom World TV are very important for bringing the gospel anew to our cultures, to our families, to each of us individually. And so I encourage all the viewers of Shalom World TV, and I encourage Shalom World TV themselves to keep up the good work, to keep watching this channel and to keep up the good work of presenting the Catholic faith to our world today.